I make a lot of work with fabric and stitch, so this is pretty typical of a lot of my practice. And the work came about because I was particularly interested in, let's say, women's experience of the 19th century, because I was making the work for a show originally that happened in the old women students' common room of Liverpool University. The building was built in the 19th century. So I was interested in the women who would have used that room. And so further down the line, I started to think about this relationship between the mind and the body. So the pieces in Scales of Life, that body of work is called Threshold. Thinking really about the skin as a threshold between the inner and the outer worlds, and how the skin and the body can sort of betray our sometimes unconscious thoughts. The sculptures and the embroideries are based on 2 interviews that I did. One with a woman who's suffered from eczema her whole life, which is exacerbated in times of stress. And then another woman who developed psoriasis after some particularly traumatic events in her life. So the phrases that constitute the titles of the limb pieces and the text on the embroideries, they all come from these interviews. So the limbs are made from calico stuffed with sawdust and then covered in different fabrics like, what have we got? Plastic, old discoloured plastic that I got out of a skip that used to cover computers. Nice and yellow. What else? Plastic bed sheet. There's some silks and synthetic fabrics. All in a really restrained colour palette. And then in the limbs are stuck entomological pins. Some of them are headless, and so you can see the sparkles of the pins as the light plays across them. And some of them are holding beads and sequins into the limbs. And they all, the patterns of the pins and the sequins and the beads come from the patterns of the manifestations of eczema and psoriasis in different forms. In making this, I think it's reflective of a lot of my practice, in that I'm kind of drawing beauty from something which is horrific or revolting or traumatic, and looking at something positive taken from a negative experience. And I was really struck by the decorative qualities of the forms of skin conditions, and the differences and different qualities of the flakes and scabs and rashes, and how they sit on the body. So there was that element of just looking at them just as purely patterns. At the time, I thought I was making work about other people's experiences, because I haven't suffered from eczema or psoriasis myself. But actually, at the time, I was having IVF, so I was sticking myself with, not pins, but with syringes every day, delivering the IVF drugs. And I was making work about how the body can almost be a traitor to the mind and express things that you wouldn't consciously want to express. So there's this thing about finding beauty in something that could be seen as horrific or repulsive. And one of the embroidered text pieces says, "Yeah, vicious circle, isn't it?" And the woman there was talking about how her eczema flares up. She feels really self-conscious about it. Feels like, I know she was talking about the stigma of skin disease, whether that's in the eye of the beholder or whether that's perceived by the sufferer, feeling dirty or even contagious, as if people might think they could catch something from her, or even as an object of pity. So then she starts to feel crap about herself, which then exacerbates the skin condition even more, and it's this vicious circle that you get into. So yeah, I think there's something highlighting body image there, and how the face that we present to the world is so important for how we feel about ourselves.